All right, hey, we're back and we're into lesson 7. I thank you guys for joining me. I thank you for the opportunity to come and share with you part of my just my passion, my love for the work that God has me doing. We're teaching familiar pitfalls, falling into familiar pits. Now, Familiar Pitfalls is the book that I wrote here. Okay, this is Familiar Pitfalls, falling into familiar pits. Now, if you go buy it on Amazon, you're not going to see this gray stripe that says not for resale. That's for me because it's my proof copy. Okay, but you can get this book on Amazon. It comes in hardcover, it comes in paperback, it comes in ebook format. So there's 3 different formats on Amazon. All right. So you can search for it by title name, Familiar Pitfalls, or you can search for it by my name, Elder James T. Moss Sr. as the author. Okay. So go get it because the videos that I'm creating here don't cover the whole book. Okay. As a matter of fact, there's a lot that's going to be you're going to find that is still not addressed in the videos that's in the book, but everything that's in the videos is in the book. But the book covers so much more. Okay, so for those of you who are into the Audible books, I have there's an audio version of the book on 11 Labs. You can go to 11 Labs and find it there. All right, so with all the housekeeping out of the way and all that good stuff, right? One other thing I'd like to say before we start: tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, hey, pick up this book, and hey, pick one up for yourself. Get into it if you really like it. Hey, start a book and start a club where hey, you guys come together and you cover each chapter. There's 10 chapters. There's 269 pages. There's questions. There's things in there to say, I want to help you grow. Okay, so as we start to peel back the layers of this onion, we understand that, hey, you know what? We can come out victorious in this thing, okay? Those familiar places that we fall in sin don't necessarily mean that it's the end of us. It doesn't mean that there's no hope for us. It doesn't mean that it's an insurmountable task. All right, and so familiar pitfalls addresses that. Okay, and hey, if you got comments, testimony, questions, whatever, hey, feel free to hit me up and drop me some love, drop a show that, hey, look, I got the book, I read it, and this is what I think about it. This is how it's affecting me, and this is what I'm doing. Okay, so hey, let's see what's going on out there. I'd be glad to hear from you. All right, so now we're going to go into lesson 7, okay? And this lesson is entitled The Warning I Keep Ignoring. Huh? Another one of those things that contributes to us having pitfalls and falling back into the same thing. All right, so in our last lesson, we dealt with the door that we keep leaving open, okay? And we learned that some familiar pits keep gaining access because we never fully closed what keeps giving the old pattern a way back into our lives. So now we're going to go from the door to the warning. All right. So today the question is, what warning or warnings do I keep ignoring? Okay. And this question matters because most repeated falls do not happen without any signal at all. Okay. Before the fall, there's often a warning, there's a check in the spirit. There is a thought that says, this is not wise. There's a familiar pattern we recognize. There's a door we know that should not be opened again. Okay. And so sometimes the warning is not loud, but it's clear enough to make us pause. Okay. And many times when we look back after the damage has been done, we realize God was dealing with us before the pit got another grip onto us. So today we're not only asking why we fell, we're asking what warning we stepped over before we fell. All right. See, a warning is not God trying to embarrass us. All right. So understand that. Okay, but a warning is mercy before consequence. It is God giving us space to turn before the pattern takes over again. It is God interrupting the road before the road leads us back to the same pit. It is God bringing attention to something we may be trying to ignore because desire or emotion or pride or weariness has already started talking to us. Okay. And so many times we recognize the warning more clearly after the fall than before it. So now look, we remember the moment that we should have stopped. We remember the door that we should have closed. We remember the conversation that we should have ended. But we also remember the quiet uneasiness that told us this was not the right direction. Okay, so the problem was not always that there was no warning. The problem was that we did not treat the warning seriously when it came. Hmm. Now, if we're going to stop returning to familiar pits, we have to stop calling warnings interruptions when they are really invitations to turn. Okay, sometimes the warning comes as a check in the spirit. Sometimes something inside of you says, don't go any further. All right. There may be times that something says, look, this conversation is turning. Or there may be something that say, hey, you're getting too close. Or even yet something that says, you know what, this is the same road again. All right, so that check may not come with thunder and lightning and an audible voice, because so many people like the dramatic. They think God operates in the dramatic, but in the scripture, it tells us that He's that small, still voice. Okay, so it may come quietly, but still clearly. It may come as a pause in the heart, an uneasiness in the spirit, or a moment where wisdom interrupts what desire is trying to justify. Hmm. You see, the danger is that when desire is speaking loudly, the warning can feel inconvenient. When appetite is awake, the check can feel like an interruption. When emotion is stirred, wisdom can feel like it's getting in the way. All right. So, but if we see, we got to understand this. But the check is not there to rob us. It's not there to embarrass us. It's not there to belittle us. It's not there to strip us of anything. It is there to rescue us before the pit gets another grip. All right. And if I keep pushing past the check, I am not just ignoring a feeling. I may be ignoring the mercy God sent before the consequence arrives. Huh. Psalms chapter 1, verses 20 through 23 goes, wisdom crieth without. She uttereth her voice in the streets. She crieth in the chief place of concourse, in the openings of the gate. In the city she uttereth her words, saying, how long, ye simple ones, will ye love simplicity? And the scorners delight in their scorning, and fools hate knowledge. Turn at your reproof, or turn at my reproof. Whichever one you want to say. Turn you at my reproof. Behold, I will pour out my spirit upon you. I will make known my words unto you. So basically, what we're saying here uh, is wisdom speaks before destruction speaks. Wisdom calls before consequence arrives. Wisdom gives opportunity before regret has the final word. That means warning is not the absence of grace, warning is part of grace. God does not warn because he is against us, he warns because he sees what is ahead of us. He knows where the road leads before we feel the pain of arriving there. All right? So when wisdom cries, the safest response is not delay. Okay? The safest response is not argument. The safest response is not, I will turn later. Okay? The safest response is to turn while turning is still available. Huh? So, listen, one of the dangers of familiar patterns is that repeated warnings can become background noise. All right? At first, a warning may feel sharp. The conscience feels sensitive. The spirit feels troubled. The heart knows something is wrong. But if we keep ignoring the same warning, we can become used to hearing it without obeying it. That is a dangerous place because it means the warning may still be present, but our response to it has weakened. It is possible to recognize the warning and still keep moving. It is possible to know this is the same road and still keep walking. It is possible to feel the to feel the check and still explain it away. Huh? The warning does not lose value because it keeps coming. All right, but we can lose sensitivity when we keep refusing to respond. Now, when the warning becomes background noise, the pit becomes easier to approach because what once stopped us from now only what once basically stopped us from getting it or going back to the pit is now only a brief bother to us. Okay, so the warning we minimize, we delegitimize the warning by continually not heeding it, by continually putting it off, by continually saying, "Oh, I'll deal with it later," or it's not that big of a deal. Okay, so uh, we got to also understand that many warnings are not random. They point to a pattern. All right. See, they show us where the cycle usually begins. Maybe the warning comes when we isolate, or start rehearsing offense, or start hiding, or justifying small compromises, or when we start getting defensive about a door that should be closed. You see, if we pay attention, the warning can teach us where the pattern is trying to restart. That means the warning is not only telling us to stop, it is also showing us where to be watchful. Now, some people keep falling at the same place because they keep ignoring the same early signals. All right. They only pay attention once the fall is obvious. But by then, basically the cycle has already gained momentum. All right. And if I keep ignoring the warning, I may keep missing the moment where obedience could have interrupted the cycle. And that means spiritual growth requires me to pay attention earlier than I used to. So when a warning comes, one of the wisest things we can do is slow down. Huh? Don't rush past the check. Do not explain it away too quickly. Do not let desire hurry the decision. Do not let emotion drive that next step. You see, sometimes the fall gains momentum because we move too fast. We answer too fast. We click too fast. We agree too fast. We return too fast. All right. But slowing down gives wisdom room to speak. It gives power to prayer, and prayer then has room to rise. It gives truth room to challenge the lie. It gives the Holy Spirit room to redirect the heart before the old pattern gets control of the moment. All right. These are times when the most spiritual thing a person can do is pause. Huh? Not because they're confused but because they're recognizing there's a warning. Okay? If the warning is trying to stop me, then slowing down may be the first act of obedience. Because sometimes the difference between repeating the pit and escaping the pattern is whether I pause long enough to listen. All right. All right. So a pause may not feel powerful in the moment, but it can protect us from repeating a fall. Sometimes a pause is where conviction gets heard, or where wisdom becomes clear, or the lie loses momentum, or, gives us enough space to remember what happened the last time we ignored the warning. Huh? So the enemy often wants urgency because urgency can make disobedience feel necessary. He wants the moment to feel immediate. He wants us to believe we have to respond now, decide now, return now, satisfy the appetite now, or defend ourselves now. But every urgent feeling does not deserve immediate obedience. Remember that, okay? See, some things that feel urgent they're basically invitations to repeat an old cycle. If the enemy can get you to make snap decisions, then he's got you. All right. So when the warning comes, the pause becomes a gift. It gives me room to ask, where is this taking me? Hmm? If the answer is back to the pit, then the pause has already begun protecting my future. Warnings do not tell us something is wrong. They show us where wisdom is needed. If I keep receiving the same kind of warning in the same kind of situation, then that area needs more wisdom, not more excuses. Okay. So if I keep feeling checked around a certain conversation, I need wisdom there. If I keep feeling troubled about a certain relationship, I need wisdom there. If I keep sensing danger around a certain habit, I need wisdom there. If I keep seeing the same pattern forming before the same kind of fall, you got it. I need wisdom there. Huh? A warning is not always telling me that everything has already collapsed. Sometimes it's showing me the place where collapse could begin if I keep moving without discernment. That's why warnings should not be dismissed just because nothing bad has happened yet. Okay? So the warning may be the reason nothing bad has happened yet. All right? And if wisdom is speaking before the damage, then maturity learns to listen before regret has time to teach the lesson. Okay? So, in other words, we don't want regret stepping in and teaching us the lesson. We'd rather let wisdom come in and notify us what to do before the damage is done. That way, we don't have to do a recovery later. You follow me? Good. All right. So now listen. One of the things we ignore, one of the ways we ignore warnings is by arguing with mercy. Okay, and we don't want to argue with mercy. Mercy says stop here, but desire says I can go a little further. Mercy says close that door, but appetite says I'm not doing anything wrong yet. Mercy says this is the same road, but pride says I know what I'm doing. Mercy says turn now, but the flesh says I'll turn later. Huh? See, the danger is that every argument against the warning gives the old pattern more time to gather strength. All right? While we are debating what God has already made clear, desire is getting louder. Excuses are getting stronger. The obedience basically is getting delayed. Okay, so the reason why delayed response can be dangerous is for these very reasons. So when mercy warns me, I do not need to win an argument. I need to receive the rescue. Huh? Because there are moments when the warning itself is God's way of making escape available. See, 1 Corinthians 10 and 13 tells us this: there hath no temptation taken you, but such as is common to man. But God is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that ye are able, but will with the temptation also make a way to escape, all right, that ye may be able to bear it. This verse reminds us that God is faithful even when temptation is present. Okay, he does not abandon us when the pull is strong. He does not leave us without help when the old pattern starts calling. He does not stand far away waiting to see whether we will fail. Okay, he makes a way of escape. But the way of escape must be recognized and it must be taken. Okay? Sometimes the warning is part of that escape. The check in the spirit, the pause in the heart, the sudden reminder, the uneasy feeling, the memory of what happened last time. All of that may be God telling us the exit before, or telling us, yes, the exit before the cycle closes again is here. Here's your exit. Here's your exodus. Here's your way out. Here's your escape. Because the cycle is about to close again. It's about to start, and it's about to roll you up in there. All right. So the problem is that escape does not always look dramatic. All right. Sometimes escape looks like ending the conversation. Huh? Sometimes it looks like putting the phone down. Sometimes it looks like walking away. And sometimes it looks like calling someone. Or sometimes it looks like praying before the appetite gets louder. All right, you feel me? You see where how the escape is so subtle. See, God may provide a way out, but I still have to choose the way out. And if I keep ignoring the warning, I may not only be walking toward the pit, I may also be walking past the very escape that God provided for me. All right, Proverbs 29 and 1 says, he that being often reproved hardeneth his neck shall suddenly be destroyed and without remedy. See, that's a sobering verse because it shows us the danger of being corrected again and again, but refusing to turn. See, the issue is not that warning was unavailable. The issue is that the person became hardened through repeated refusal. That can happen in familiar pits. You see, the heart can become trained to resist correction. A person can keep hearing the same warning, feeling the same conviction, seeing the same signs, and still keep moving in the same direction. Hmm. See, now, over time, what should have produced repentance can begin producing resistance. That's why we must be careful not to practice ignoring God. Every time I dismiss a warning, I am not just dealing with that one moment. I may be training my heart how to respond the next time wisdom speaks. And if my heart is being trained, I want it trained toward obedience, not resistance. See, spiritual sensitivity is something we must guard. A sensitive heart is able to feel the warning before the fall becomes obvious. A sensitive heart is still bothered by what grieves God. A sensitive heart can receive correction without needing destruction to become the teacher. All right? But sensitivity can be dulled when we keep ignoring what God keeps showing us. Okay? If I keep stepping over conviction, conviction may start feeling easier to step over. If I keep explaining away wisdom, then wisdom may start sounding less urgent. Okay? If I keep delaying obedience, delay may start feeling normal. See, that's why David prayed in Psalms 51 and 10. He says, create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. He understood that the inner life matters. The heart must remain tender before God. Because when the heart stays tender, warnings do not have to become consequences before we finally listen. Now, listen, not every warning arrives with pain attached to it, okay? Sometimes the warning is still gentle. It may come through scripture or through prayer or through wise counsel. It may come through a quiet check in the spirit. It may come through remembering what happened the last time. It may also come through the simple realization that we are standing too close to something that God already told us to leave alone. Hmm. See, the blessing of a gentle warning is that we still have room to respond before the fall becomes another testimony of regret. Okay, but if we refuse the gentle warning, we may force consequence to become louder than the wisdom had to be. Than wisdom had to be. Okay, so uh, understand this consequence being louder than wisdom, meaning okay, the back end is you're going to feel it more on the back end than you would on the front end. Okay, so and that's not because God wanted us harmed. It's because we would not listen until when mercy was still whispering. So we missed the call, and the call was so simple that we all we got to do is listen early, tune early, obey early, and we can hear early. But and so a lot of times we miss that mark. We miss that place, and the next thing you know, we end up in the classroom of consequence. We end up going into recovery mode because we kept shutting God out. We kept ignoring what He had to tell us. We kept ignoring the warning signs. Okay, and because the warning we honor today may be the mercy that keeps us from repeating yesterday. So this is why it's important that we continue to honor the warnings that we hear, and not to wait for those warnings to get louder. See, if God has already given the warning, we should not wait for it to get louder before we obey. All right. Sometimes we want stronger proof before we respond. That's kind of like that Judas thing. Oh, I walk. I mean, not Judas, but Thomas. I'm sorry, down Thomas. Man, I don't know why Judas just popped up there, but listen, where Thomas didn't believe that Jesus had resurrected. And I'm not going to believe it until I stick my finger in where they nailed his hands and in his side. And I feel the holes in his side and in his hands. All right. Sometimes we just feel like we want to get into our Thomas moment. I'm going to need more proof than this. Okay. So we want another sign and another feeling and another confirmation and another consequence or another person to say what God has already been dealing with us about. All right. But delayed obedience can be dangerous when the warning is already clear. Hmm? If the Spirit has checked me, I do not need to keep testing how far I can go. If wisdom has already shown me the danger, I do not need to keep walking closer to it. If I already recognize the pattern, I do not need to wait until the pit is visible before I start turning around. The louder warning may come with greater pain. The louder warning may come after more damage. The louder warning may come when what could have been corrected early has now become harder to repair. So, the safest time to obey a warning is when it first becomes clear enough to recognize. Mm. See, a warning is not complete just because I noticed it. Hey, a warning requires response. All right? If I notice the check but keep moving, I have not honored the warning. All right? I've not honored the warning if the pattern, if I recognize the pattern but keep feeding it. If the door is dangerous, but to keep it open, but I keep opening it, I've not honored the warning. If I feel the pull toward the pit but keep pretending nothing is happening, I have not honored the warning. All right. And so this is where many people get stuck. They refuse, or not refuse, but well, let's say they confuse recognition with obedience. Okay, they think that recognition and obedience they're coupled the same, but they think because they saw the warning, they responded to it. Okay, that was just recognition. You didn't act on it. Okay, but seeing the warning is only the beginning. Okay, the real question is, what did I do after God showed me the warning? And this is where we find obedience. Did I slow down? Did I turn? Did I close the door? Did I ask for help? Did I obey what wisdom was making clear? Hmm. See, because a warning ignored after it is recognized can become another witness against the pattern we keep defending. Hmm. All right. So the purpose of a warning is not just to make us afraid of falling. The purpose of a warning is to make us wiser. All right. If God keeps showing me where the cycle begins, then He is also teaching me where wisdom must be applied. If He shows me that isolation makes me vulnerable, then you know the wisdom that it should come along and say, I must not disappear when I'm weak. All right. And if He shows me that offense opens the door, then wisdom says I must deal with resentment before it becomes an agreement. If He shows me that certain conversations keep pulling me backwards, then wisdom should say that I should stop calling those conversations harmless. Okay. If He shows me that exhaustion makes old patterns louder, then wisdom says I must pay attention to my limits. Not to commit myself when I'm not up to snuff, when I'm not up to the par that I need to be at in order to deal with it. See, warning becomes wisdom when I stop treating it like a moment and start treating it like instruction. Okay, a lot of us, we treat wisdom, we treat warnings not like wisdom but like a moment, and that's it. We don't give it much merit. Okay, see, God is not only trying to stop one fall, He is teaching me how to stop cooperating with the cycle of falls. And if I'm going to stop ignoring warnings, I have to practice responding early. Early obedience is not always dramatic. Okay, sometimes early obedience is ending the conversation before it turns, or refusing to rehearse the thought, or stepping away from the environment, or being honest before secrecy grows, or praying before the appetite gets loud, or calling someone before isolation becomes dangerous, or choosing rest before weariness weakens wisdom. Okay, so these are some of the early responses, the practicing of early responses, recognizing these things and saying, okay, let me do the opposite before this actually takes hold. See, the point is that I do not have to wait until the fall is almost complete before I start obeying God. Huh? See, I can respond when the warning first appears. I can move when wisdom first speaks. I can turn when the road first starts looking familiar. All right. And this is where we always need to check with God for discernment. Help us to discern His word, discern His voice, discern His message. And the more I practice responding early, the less opportunity the familiar pit has to become my destination again. Okay, so I don't have to. One day I'm not going to keep saying, "Well, why did I keep ending up here?" All right. So now the question for this lesson is, what warnings do I keep ignoring? All right. And so, not just what pit keeps showing up, or not just what door keeps opening, not just what voice keeps speaking, but what warnings have I been stepping over? Huh? What has God already been showing me? What check have I been explaining away? What pattern have I been pretending not to recognize? What counsel have I dismissed because I did not want to change? What scripture has been confronting me, but I keep treating it like it applies to someone else? See, this is where honesty becomes necessary, because the warning I keep ignoring may be the place where mercy has been meeting me again and again. And if mercy keeps meeting me there, then I do not need to keep walking past it. I need to stop, listen, and turn. Huh? So the warning I keep ignoring may be the mercy I keep overlooking. It may be the voice of wisdom trying to stop me before regret has to teach me again. All right. It may be the way of escape God provided before the pit has another chance to pull me in. So today we're not asking God only to forgive us after the fall. We are asking Him to make us sensitive before the fall. All right. Lord, help me recognize the warnings I've been ignoring. Help me to stop arguing with mercy. Help me to stop walking past the way of escape. Help me respond while my heart is still tender and the door can still be closed. See, teach me to slow down when wisdom speaks. Teach me to turn when the Spirit checks me. Teach me to obey before consequence becomes the teacher. See, because I do not want to keep falling over warnings you already sent to protect me. That's a prayer for us. So, and by your grace, God, I will not keep ignoring the mercy that is trying to lead me away from the pit. See, we have to talk to God in these ways because what it is it's an affirmation for us in our spirit that okay, I'm humbling myself and I'm going to you, God. I'm bringing it to you, and I'm bringing everything that I recognize that I've been doing wrong, and I'm saying, hey, you have to help me. You have to teach me. And when you do these things, then now I can start having fewer trips to the pit. Eventually, I have no more trips to this pit and I can move on to something else, move on to bigger and better things, greater things in my life. And when other pits show up, I already know how to deal with them. All right. That's where we're trying to get. That's what we're trying to do. And, I want to thank you for your patience and taking the time out to just go through these lessons with me. It means so much to me. I hope and pray that you really receive, solid word on how to deal with familiar pitfalls and the sins that keep dragging us back and dragging us back. And we find ourselves going back and back and back, like uh, and we're feeling like we're spinning our wheels, okay? But if we can stop ignoring God's warnings, okay, and understand they're not there to exploit us, but to rescue us, but to help us and to motivate us to do better, to make the right choices, to listen to wisdom when wisdom speak. These are the things that help us become victorious when it comes to dealing with familiar pitfalls. All right. So listen, I thank you again. I would love to hear from you. If you're watching these videos, drop me a line. Let me know what's going on, how you feel. And in the meantime, we're going to get ready for the next lesson, okay? And uh, other than that, like I always tell my students, keep studying.